All right, all right. We are back at the Grit Won't Quit podcast studio in beautiful Belmont, New Jersey, even though it's not beautiful out today, but hopefully it will get better as the day goes on. And I'm here with a very special guest, Harris. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good, thank you. So you met me probably about a year and a half ago or
Pretty
so
much.
at a Kchev event.
Yep.
You were sponsoring a Kchev event. Is that the one at Joe Bella's?
Yes, it
Joe-
was.
Shout out to Joe. Shout out to Kchev. Shout out to Joe Bella. It's a good morning today with those two guys getting shouted out. Both great guys and both good in the networking arena. So you sponsored Kchev because you wanted to get just out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I guess we started following each other on social media.
For sure.
And then when we got to the point of looking for some podcast guests, you raised your hand and you said, I want to be on this.
Absolutely.
So, have you been on any podcasts before?
No, this is actually the first one.
First time on a podcast. Andrew, got a rookie out here today. All right. So tell us about your business. Tell us about what you do. Tell us what makes you different and, why people should use you when they're choosing, a professional.
Absolutely. So I tend to work towards Lavalette, Seaside Park, Point Pleasant. So a lot of.
So you like the beach?
Absolutely. I like the beach. I like the beach
30,
houses.
Yeah, Route 35 South.
Exactly.
And to the water.
Exactly. And I started about three years ago.
Okay.
In real estate, and right off the bat, I started calling up for sale by owners. You know how it is early on in the process. I would just go into these expensive houses.
So you wasted no time in the lower, the middle, and you went right to the top.
Absolutely. And, I knew which market I was going to focus on from the very beginning.
Okay.
So I was calling up for sale by owners when I was really young, going into real estate. I would just go into these multi-million-dollar mansions. I was talking to corporate executives my first 2-3 months of real estate, so I got very familiar with what they wanted.
You went right to the top. I love it.
Exactly.
So now, when you got so you start cold calling and you're calling these FSBOs for sale by owner, and then you get a meeting.
Yeah.
Were they expecting to see a younger guy, or was anybody like, this isn't?
I think they were very kind. Most of them would just want to have a conversation, and as long as you brought a buyer with you, or as long as you had buyers in the area in that price range, that's all they cared about.
They didn't care about anything to do with the fact that you were a younger guy with a little less experience.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So you had no fear.
Yeah, absolutely never.
What made you decide real estate was for you?
So I grew up with my dad doing real estate in a different country, actually.
What country?
Pakistan. So I grew up there, and I remember being 7, 8 years old, and my dad would just take me out to his meetings, and I was just meeting buyers.
And you were like,
sellers.
I'm doing this when I grow up?
I did not know that at the time, but I found it very fascinating on how to, negotiate on behalf of clients and how to actually make a deal happen.
Okay.
And,
So you're 7, 8 years old watching this happen.
Yeah.
Now, when you come to the United States,
Yeah.
What did you study in school, or like what?
So finance.
Okay.
So I started in the finance background, which is very helpful when it comes to real estate, because you have to know your numbers.
Sure. I mean, especially like when you're looking at qualifications and making sure that this guy who's calling you to go see a $2.5 million house, that he could swing that monthly
exactly.
that number with plus the taxes and the insurances and all the other stuff that goes along with that.
Yep.
So what was the first deal you made in the beach areas?
In the beach areas, the first deal I made was in Seaside Park.
Okay.
128 O Street. Still remember it.
Of course you remember your first.
My first deal.
Everybody remembers their first deal.
For sure. And, it was just helped amazing client. She wanted to move down from Connecticut to Seaside Park, and it was her lifelong dream.
To live on the Jersey Shore?
To live on the Jersey Shore, and I'm just so glad we're able to, make the process smooth and, seamless for her.
What's crazy is Connecticut has their own shore. They have
for
in
sure.
In Fairfield County, you have all those towns on the Long Island Sound.
Yeah.
But she wanted the Jersey Shore.
She loved the Jersey Shore. Her kids grew up in the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
They had friends there.
Coming down on the summers and stuff.
It's just awesome to make that happen.
So how did you meet this Connecticut buyer?
So I've been doing open houses in the beach town areas for about 2.5, 3 years.
Okay.
Every weekend. you'll either find me in Seaside Park or Lavalette. So that's kind of how I ran into this client. I met her son, made a connection, and
At an open house.
at an open house, and that was the exact house they ended up buying.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Which is very rare.
Now, most agents don't like to do open houses.
Yeah, but
Why is that? Do you know?
I think it's
Well,
just,
what's your thought process?
I don't know about other agents, to be honest with you. Everyone has their own approach when it
Sure.
comes to real estate. But for me, I found it very important to be, close to proximity to the buyer that I'm looking for. And, working with with Keller Williams Shore Properties, I got that opportunity to do them very regularly every single weekend. So I was like, I have to do it just
Yeah.
because there's not much that can happen on the weekend other than if I go to open houses and actually introduce myself to qualified buyers.
Mhm.
So I really looked at it as an approach of, it's the exact market that I want to work in. I have to be here every weekend.
I like your approach. At least you understand where you got to be by the buyers.
Exactly.
If you're not by the buyers, you're not selling houses.
Exactly.
So now, a couple of years into this, you really like it?
Absolutely. I love it.
No turning back for you.
No turning back now.
And this is you're in a tough market right now.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's just very cyclical. Real estate tends to be very cyclical. And, I got in at 3 years ago when, the interest rates were absolute at the highest.
Yep.
So now I've just kind of gotten used to the market and, it's going to turn around like it always does. So
You should have been there 5 years ago when they
Yeah.
were giving the money away.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, you would have had a head start. But I think it also is you've been in from the hardest point in time.
Yeah.
So you really haven't seen the glory days
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So once that happens, I mean, if you're surviving and you're hustling and you're making it through the tough times,
Yeah.
when it is it is cyclical. When that happens, you're going to be
Absolutely. That must mean I really love it. So
I mean, well, listen, I think you're sticking with it. I think I would imagine there's a lot of realtors who, have stopped doing it or
Yeah, I
looking at
believe-
other careers.
Yeah,
And again, I think real estate's a very tough career. It's
Mhm.
it's a commission based
Yeah.
position. There's a lot of highs, but there could be also some lows. And
Yeah.
if you don't sell enough real estate, it's hard. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think I've seen a stat that said like 80% of realtors sell like less than 2 houses a year.
Exactly.
So and I think a lot of people use that as a side hustle and something to do. But I do think, and we've had many realtors on the podcast over time, the guys that are full time at this, they're hustling harder, they're doing more. But again, I think that they're better fit for their clients. A guy who's doing this on the side and has a full time job, or is not looking at the market every single day, or
Yeah.
not available on a phone call to get a text to say, hey, put this offer in or adjust this price. I think that they're doing a disservice
Yeah.
to their client.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to, a market like Jersey Shore real estate and like beach houses, these clients are buying, they're making a very big investment to be able to buy a beach house. And I try to get back to clients within 5 minutes every single time. And if I was doing something else on the side,
Like a podcast right now.
no. But if I was doing something
Yeah.
else, I would have a very hard time, keeping up with the customer service.
You couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't. So, and you said to me before we got on camera that customer service is a big part of what you do and what differentiates you. So let's kind of just dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about customer service in general and why you feel it's so important and what you do for your clients to make them be using the best.
Absolutely. So ever since I started in this, I knew this was a long-term thing for me. And I knew I had to kind of put off immediate gratification for long-term gratification with clients, because I would give them advice that is, even against my own interest at times. And I remember this last deal that I did in Lavalette. It was a 1031 exchange, and I knew the client would probably end up using another listing agent to declare 2 other properties on the 1031 exchange. But I gave that advice to her because I knew she couldn't put all her eggs in one basket when it comes to a transaction like that. So I called her and I was like, make sure that you declare 2 other properties other than the one that we're already under contract in. So it's very important to me to have a long-term relationship with the clients that I work for. And, I don't mind giving advice that is against my own interest.
Well, that shows integrity too. It shows that you're really
Thank you.
doing right for the client. And again, I think for people with integrity, long term will always prevail. There might be some short term misses, but for long term success. And I've tried to build my company on integrity too, because again, you can't. You're only as good as what comes out of your mouth.
Exactly.
Or goes on an email. And for those that don't know what a 1031 tax exchange is, could you please explain in simple terms for our visitors? And again, a lot of entrepreneurs that do like real estate may not know about a 1031 exchange. I happen to know it, but you probably know it better than me.
Absolutely. So 1031 exchange is when you sell an investment property and you take that money and you put it into another investment property after, and it helps you kind of with tax advantage.
Yep, it defers the taxes
Exactly.
of the capital gain. So if you had a house, an investment property that you had for $500,000, that you bought for $500,000, and you sold it for $900,000, rather than getting taxed on that $400,000, you can invest that $400,000 into a 1031, buy another property through the same process, and there's guidelines on how many days you have to be to identify a property and to close on a property before it becomes a taxable event, and then from there you invest it, and then ultimately at the end of the day you still have to pay your taxes on it, but it defers the capital gain. So as you're trying to build equity and build your financial position, you have the leverage of not paying the taxes on it.
It's very helpful when it comes to actually scaling your
portfolio.
your portfolio. Exactly.
And again, I think that's great that you gave, that's good advice, because so that you didn't put your client could have a taxable issue if
Exactly.
You didn't put that advice forward for them. Did they go through with the 1031?
They did. Yep.
Okay.
We just closed last month.
Oh, good.
In Lavalette. So
Awesome.
happy for her.
Happy for her. So so now that beach market in the winter, how do you, it's a little bit slower down there?
Absolutely. It is a little bit slower, but the buyers that you get in that, especially right now in the winter, they tend to be very serious buyers. And
they're not just looking around because they had nothing to do on a Saturday.
Exactly. And once they go see the house, they if they like it 100%, they want to buy it. So they get more serious around this time.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are just going to enjoy the holidays coming up.
Sure.
So if they're making a trip down here,
Yep,
to be able to look at properties.
and how do you find a lot of your clients?
A lot of my clients have come from just the open houses that I do.
Wow.
I just end up talking to them, making a long-term connection.
Yep.
Following up over and over again until
Yep.
they hire me. So
Put them in a drip email campaign, keep them up to date with what's going on.
Exactly.
So, and that's great. I mean, I think that's the name of the game. And besides the service aspect, and because that is key. How else do you see yourself? In a crowded market. Again, we talked about that there might be a little bit less realtors, but it's still a crowded market on the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
How do you kind of set yourself out and be a little bit, the guy that they want to talk to?
Absolutely. So they see me out every single weekend. So if they go look at the property in Lavalette, their chances are they're gonna run into one house that I'm in, doing an open house in.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of houses that are
exactly.
open houses.
And it's familiarity over time. And I had this vision even 2 years before. I was like, if I stay here and keep doing these week after week, month after month, year after year, I'm gonna get familiar with the people who constantly come in here, and
And you've seen that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I mean, it's like going to the gym. The more you go to the gym,
Exactly.
the more the muscles look bigger.
Exactly.
So, and the more that you do the same routine, people will start to see you, notice you,
Exactly.
and ask you those questions.
Absolutely.
Where do you see yourself going? And you're in this for 3 years. Where do you see the next 3 to 5 years going for you in your real estate career?
So people tend to underestimate. I heard this from a mentor of mine. People tend to underestimate what they can do in 5 years, and they tend to overestimate for a year, and then for 5 years they tend to underestimate. So the main focus right now is just building my brand. I have gone through the legwork of doing open houses for 3-4 years now, and now it just comes down to actually building a brand online and actually being able to, reach the right client base that I'm trying to reach without physically just being there every single weekend, which I don't mind being, but It's just long-term vision is to be able to scale the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now are you going to when you say scale the business, are you looking to bring a team underneath you?
So right now I'm under Keller Williams Shore Properties, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows in the future, but right now I'm a one-man show.
You're
right
a
now.
one-man
You
show.
know, I'll tend to just work that way.
Now that Keller Williams where's their office in Tom's
Their
River?
office, they have one in Lavalette, and then there's one in Tom's River as well.
And is that through Mike Little?
Mike Little. Yep.
Shout out to Mike Little. Yeah. So all right, cool. So I mean, he's a great leader too.
He's such a. I could not say enough good things about Mike Little. He's just always had my back. He's a great person to be around.
That's a great guy to have as at the top of your team.
Absolutely.
That's great. So now as you continue to scale, I think you have to just think about where to put your best resources all the time, because
Exactly.
you're going to be, are you going to, again, the open houses are great, but at the same time you want to scale, you want to see more people, getting, building your online brand, I think will be helpful.
Absolutely.
And now what about the commercial space?
So commercial, I do have a deal going in commercial as well. I can't speak too much about it because
Yep.
it's still under contract. But yeah, commercial is just very interesting space as well, especially for business owners.
Yep.
It's a very interesting space, whether they be looking to, buy a place to work out of or to lease it. And it's just a very interesting market, I would say, because there's a lot more of the financial side that comes into commercial real estate than it does when it comes to residential real estate. At least that's what I've noticed in my,
I also think it's less emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you look at a house, I know when we bought my last house, my wife loved the house, so we were buying it regardless of from a financial standpoint, from my thought process. My wife loved it.
Yeah.
We're buying that house.
Exactly.
Whereas when I bought my building in Manasquan, it was all about dollars and cents.
Exactly.
And financial, and it wasn't about loving the space.
Exactly.
I mean, I do love the space, but it needed so much work when I first got in there that it was hard to love at the beginning.
And here's the thing, like I tend to kind of do the work for you, especially when it comes to my finance background and having someone like Mike Little by my side. We're very good at, running the numbers for you. Yep. So if you are interested in an investment property,
understanding what it's about,
and actually, putting down the picture and showing you what's actually the best decision.
Well, you got to look at the rent roll. You got to look at what it's going to do. And commercial spaces. There's some days I say it's overvalued in Monmouth County, and then there's other days I say, well, what happens when you need less office space, and it's interesting,
Yeah, it's gone very interesting with COVID. When COVID came around, and all the offices, ended up going remote, and it's picking back up now.
It is, and but it's also interesting. Do people need as much office space as they did? A lot of companies have hybrid policies now, so it's interesting to see where that's going to go and how that's going to play out, and also what AI brings to commercial real estate. If you have less employees, what does that do to you too? So
for sure,
I'm interested to see it play out. I have a great spot on Route 70 in Manasquan, Wall Township, as we were talking about earlier. But there's some days I say, what happens here, and again, how much could these buildings appraise for? Yeah. And people it's an interesting financial place with commercial real estate. And especially I think that the Jersey Shore has unique tendencies that the rest of the state or the country doesn't have. Jersey Shore is just, Monmouth and Ocean are just very popular.
Exactly.
People want to live here. People want second homes here. You have Netflix coming up into Monmouth County. That's going to add jobs. So that's going to also increase the value of Ocean County real estate too, because not everybody's going to be able to live in Monmouth County. Exactly. So I think that there's just, and again, then you have the beach areas, which are different of themselves than the rest of Ocean County. So I think you're in a great spot for future expansion.
Yep.
And I think, you have a great team. You work with a great team. And, it's going to be good for you.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up today, let people know where they can find you, if they want to connect with you online, your website, on social, let people know how to do that.
Absolutely. So my handle on Instagram is just List with Horace, and you'll be able to find me there. Shoot me a DM, anything that you need, and obviously.
List with Horace. That's nice and easy.
Yep, nice and easy. I try to make it that way.
Yep.
And I'm also on Facebook, same handle, and
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on today
Yeah, of course.
and telling your story. I wish you continued success, and it sounds like you have a pretty good thing in place already.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. It was a pleasure being on as my first podcast.
First podcast.
Yep.
All right.